Hi everyone, it's Stormless here, bringing you another COH2 tips and tricks video, back by popular demand. We'll get straight onto it. Base building in Company of Heroes 2. A lot of people might see this as a relatively pointless exercise in a real-time strategy game like Company of Heroes. However, there are some tricks and tips towards doing things with your base buildings that will help you in your games. The map is currently Crossroads, so I'm just going to talk about a couple of things. First one that I think most people know, but if you have just picked up the game recently over the free weekend, here's a little tip if you're playing factions like Austere or maybe even US in some instances. This is related to building your medic bunkers. For Austere, the position of this can be important, especially when you have maps where units can retreat from two different positions in the base. That means sometimes they will end up on the left corner of the base here, or sometimes they could end up on this corner. And depending on where you build a medic bunker, like if you were to build it here, it might not always heal units that are on this side of the headquarters building. So good position is always to just pick the middle of the two, build that building. This is a good position for it. Anyway, just to move on quickly from that, let's talk about other positions for tier buildings. Now, the reason I picked Austere on a map like Crossroads is so I can show you that the positioning of base buildings can really affect your reinforcement gameplay, especially in a 1v1 where you want to be most competitive, you want to spend the most time on the front lines as possible. So here I'm going to show you how to reinforce squads close to the front line without retreating them back to base. The way we do that with Austere, you can reinforce from any of your tier buildings quite easily. Let me just get the right one. Now here I'm going to put my tier 1 building in this corner. There's a nice little spot for it right there. And we'll let the pioneers build that. Now, your infantry units can reinforce from a range around this building. So by putting it here, actually now, if I have a grenadiers who are weakened or missing squad members on the front lines, instead of retreating them back to base, I can actually walk them to this area on the map. And I will be able to reinforce them from a position where I just don't have to pull them back onto the base. I'm going to save myself a lot of time by doing this. You see right here, there's the reinforce option. The really cool thing about this, I have cheat mods on at the moment, so I've got instant reinforce just to show you this. But if I hit reinforce now, you will see that the units come out on this side of the hedgerow. So they don't even have to spawn here and run all the way around. They're actually just going to spawn close to the hedgerow, and then you can just get that squad back on the front lines fighting quickly and efficiently. So that's a really good tip for base building, where you can just keep the momentum going on the front lines. Don't get into that habit of always just hitting retreat whenever a bad situation comes up and a squad's weak, unless of course you need healing. But again, with Austere, you have got the option at Vet 1 to heal your squads for a relatively low amount, so reinforce them, heal if necessary. Having units on the front line is really one of the most key things you can have. Every 1v1 map is different, so find ways that you can do this with your tier buildings, good positions for them. We will just switch over to a different faction, so I can show you another cool tip with OKW on the same map. Here we're in the exact same situation on Crossroads in a 1v1, this time playing as OKW, in order to show you again with positioning of the tier buildings how you can influence your frontline gameplay. So actually, if we just have a look at the overview of Crossroads at the moment, as I was saying before, a lot of engagements take place around here. We're going to make a decision that actually our opponent is very aggressive, the game has kind of gone into a stalemate, and really we're playing a lot on the left side and the middle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my SWS and I'm going to make it into a mechanized regiment. Now the idea behind this is when I upgrade it with the repair pioneers, I'm going to be able to get repairs on my tank without having to drive my tank even back to base. So here somewhere actually we'll see. Hope they didn't get stuck. But now if I reverse my tank even to this location, you'll already see activity from the repair models. as they gleefully dance towards the Panzer IV. They actually look so happy. Yay! I've been waiting to get my tools out all day. Anyway. As you can see, really, this tank doesn't have to be far back at all before 3 repair pioneers come out and start repairing it. And that's a huge boost, you know, to your frontline gameplay, because now you don't even have to retreat very much. You may even just pull a tank back that's barely injured and just next time you click on it, find it's been repaired because of this position of the mechanized regiment. The same thing could be done with Battle Grouper for OKW. You could position that along this hedgerow as well. However, I think the medics would have to run around in order to heal, and that isn't as efficient, to be honest. But you get the idea that there are things that you can do with different factions that allow you to reinforce, you know, soft by soft retreating rather than always pulling units back to the base. Company of Heroes 2 is all about looking for creative ways to overcome your opponent, and this next one is a cheeky little trick involving the austere telemines. Now here you can see on Crossroads is a really good telemine position to catch any light vehicles that are going to be coming around this hedgerow, this big line of sight blocker. And if a light vehicle like a T-70 came across and hit this, it would be wiped out immediately. So when you do detect these, instead of actually sweeping them, consider laying one of your own mines slightly ahead of the telemines, kind of on your side, not your opponent's side, and then retreat away from the telemines. Don't actually sweep them. The result of this is that your opponent could run infantry units across the telemines into your TM35 mine in this case, and it will blow up both the telemine and the TM35 as well, probably, in fact, in most cases, wiping the squad immediately. So I'm just going to show how that works. And remember that, you know, if you are playing in a game and you can see that a mine that you laid is still there, your assumption is that your opponent hasn't swept that mine. In fact, your assumption is that they haven't even seen it. So you're not going to think anything about walking a squad like this over your own telemine. You know it's not going to do anything. But as you look here, capturing this point, triggering the TM35 mine, is going to detonate both and wipe the squad. And that is a great way to utilize your opponent's own mines, specifically targeted for vehicles, against them to wipe infantry. This trick doesn't just work against infantry squads as well. We can see there's a little telemine hidden here. If we just want to drop our own mine again, just slightly in front of it where we think an enemy squad or a tank will come from, and again just leave the telemine there, then you can also see the kind of effect that this will have on enemy vehicles. Again, you might think this is silly, but a lot of players, when they see their own teleminers there, suspect no minesweepers have been over. But you can see the amount of damage that a tank will take. I think that tank is lucky to still be alive, to be completely honest. But again, really good trick. Can wipe light vehicles, you know, light tanks, and deal huge damage to medium and heavy tanks as well. So use that in your games. Enjoy it. At the start of a game, you will normally have access to some kind of light vehicle. Here, we're playing as the OKW. We'll have access to a Kühlwagen. Don't be afraid to use this in ways other than capping right at the start of the game. Feel free to throw it into enemy territory, specifically trying to take down any medium cover areas which are easily crushable by this light vehicle. This is really good because actually when you start making your way up the map, you leave your opponent right from the start of the game with relatively nothing to take cover in, meaning your engagements will go better, and it really just kind of like helps the flow of the game. So let's just quickly switch over to this Kubel here. And I mean, just playing from the north side of Kolodny Firma, you can see it's just really easy just to click down all of these fences right at the start. It doesn't take much time to do this either. That includes anything that is anything at all, even the horse. But by doing this, like I said, it doesn't take much time. You know, you should really get to grips with the 1v1 maps. Make sure you have like a regular routine and a pattern, and you should be able to get out of there still keeping the Kubel or whatever vehicle you're using alive. And really, this just leaves your opponent with so few options when you do decide to push, probably forcing them to make some teching choices like machine guns, or just invest time with engineers building you know, heavy cover sandbags and other defensive positions. This next section is going to be a tip on how to play the Soviet faction, which is mainly aimed at beginners or intermediate players. One of the core features of the Soviet faction is the merge ability, which allows you to transfer models or units from a conscript squad into another squad. That can mean that you transfer them into a support weapon, which means it can stay on the front lines for longer, or you could put them into a specialized unit like shock troops or guards. When you do that, there are some considerations though, so we're just going to talk a little bit about those. So firstly, just to show you the merge ability and a common way that people will use it. Early on in the game, a lot of Soviet players may decide to go for a flamethrower on their engineers, and that allows you to clear garrisons and also clear units out of cover positions right from the start of the game. However, the engineer unit itself, especially with no veterancy, is quite weak. So normally you will see this unit running around with a squad of conscripts nearby. When the unit does lose some units, the merge ability can be used to replace those engineers. Now you see two models have come from the conscript squad and gone into the engineer squad. That allows the engineer with a more powerful weapon, the flamethrower, to stay on the front line and to stay in the engagement for longer. Some of the considerations for merge that you have to be careful of is that if you have a 3-man conscript squad and you're trying to replace 3 models from a support weapon, you will lose the conscript squad when you do that. And because of that, it's actually important that you don't merge 3 into a missing 3, because as you see here, the conscript squad is gone. You always want to keep a squad alive, so go back to base, reinforce, and replace what's missing from a full squad. A really important thing about merge is that you can use this in your game to help control how much manpower you're building. To explain this a bit better, I'm going to get a squad of conscripts. And I'm just going to take some of the squad members away. Now you can see here that the reinforcement cost of this conscript squad is 20 manpower per unit or model. So the decision has to be made on whether or not merge is going to help you to save manpower when you merge it into another squad. There are other considerations when you do this, which I'm about to explain. So here we have a shock troop squad. The reinforcement cost is 30 manpower. If I merge 2 conscripts into the shock troop squad, then I have now just saved myself 20 manpower by putting 2 conscripts into this squad. You'll notice that the conscripts take the weapons of the specialized squad. So now these 2 conscripts, like the shock troops, are holding PPSHs. They have the weapon capabilities, but they don't have the armor capabilities of the actual shock troop models. And it's important to remember that the overall squad is slightly weaker when you do this. However, you do get a 6-man squad, slightly cheaper and very effective on the battlefield. They're still able to use all the same abilities. However, when you look at something like an AT gun, the reinforcement cost here is actually 15 manpower. Now, merging a conscript squad into something like an AT gun is actually going to cost you more because you're putting a more expensive unit in. So in this case, actually, having a half-track or even taking the AT gun back to base is always the more effective option for reinforcement if you're trying to build up your manpower in the game, kind of for mid-game or late-game tanks. So you always have to be careful with conscripts. This is a really, really good feature. It's a really, really important part of Soviet play. It allows you to keep all your support weapons on the front line. It allows you to make sure you've got specialized squads with good abilities still fighting on the field, even if they have a couple of cheaper models to, to fill in the gaps. And also it's just one of those features that really adds character to the Soviet faction and makes the game really fun to play. Here is a tip for building sandbags or heavy cover positions in a way that your opponent can't use them against you. This can be really useful on territory points that are on the outer edges of the map. As you can see here where this Tommy squad is, this is a sandbag position which I think is most common in Company of Heroes, where people will build it behind the territory point facing the direction that the opponent is going to come from, namely this area here. However, if you consider that in this game cover is very, very realistic, just because you're in heavy cover, it doesn't mean that you're benefiting from heavy cover, i.e. you have to be stood on the right side of it. There has to be an object between you and the fire you're receiving. Otherwise it doesn't count, no matter what the icon says. If you keep that in mind, then actually you can see here on the right, this is a great position for a sandbag that will not benefit the opponent attacking from the north. So here, I've just currently selected the opponent. I'm going to run into this engagement, into this heavy cover, and you will see that actually no matter what side of the cover that I'm on here, it won't actually make a difference to my engagement. The Tommies really should win this hands down, even whilst they themselves are not in a cover position. You can see there that the Volksgrenadiers is suffering, because it really doesn't matter what side right now they go on, they are going to be basically not in any cover. So when you're dealing with territory points on the outer edges of the map, simply get the sandbags lined up from the territory point and kind of point it towards the direction of your base, because this line where the sandbag is pointing is pretty much where your units are going to be running from, and that just allows you to even attack move in this direction. And even if your opponent has a squad there, it's not going to be a winning engagement for them. Whether you've played Company of Heroes for just a week or even a few years, you will be aware of the game's unique cover system, which comprises of negative cover, medium cover, and heavy cover. This tip is not really about cover itself, but this is about how to create cover using light vehicles pretty much anywhere on the map to help you win engagements. In this example, I have a machine gun and Volksgrenadiers behind a heavy cover sandbag, and as you can see, the path towards attacking the opponent here, there isn't really any decent cover positions. You have some medium cover on the bushes here on the left. There's negative cover all across the road, and pretty much no cover on my side of the road just here. Now, obviously cover is, I would say, the most important to the British faction, because they have a cover combat bonus which gives them an increased rate of fire when they're in cover, and I believe that still works better in heavy cover than it does medium cover, but either way, the idea here is to create a cover position quickly somewhere in this space so that we can win this engagement comfortably against the Volksgrenadiers and the defending machine gun. So here, what I'm going to do is just show you that the AEC here, when parked, allows you to take green cover just behind the rear or even the side of the vehicle. If you have a slightly bigger unit like the Valentine, then you can see it's easier to get the full squad behind the Valentine, and if you have upgraded to 5-man Tommy squads, you'll be able to fit 5 men behind this quite easily. But given that the AEC is most commonly available to players without commander choices, we're going to use this for this example. So here, what I'm going to do is just drive the AEC up into the engagement, kind of facing it sideways. And then as soon as it's parked, then I can go in with the Tommy squad. And this squad can now take a heavy cover position to help the AEC in winning this engagement. Of course, whilst all of this is going on, you do have to be very careful of things like AT guns. In this case, it would be a Raketten or something. What this allows you to do is play skirmish engagements on the outside of the maps, perhaps somewhere where you know your opponent doesn't have an AT gun defending it. When you need to create cover on an engagement, you need to move quickly. Light vehicles are invaluable for this. Put them in a position where the side armor is facing the opponent, get your squad behind it, and you've just created effectively a heavy cover sandbag for your units to run up to. Another thing that you can do here is you can also get these light vehicles working in a way that helps your stealthed units. So if we just take, for example, a British sniper, which will camouflage in cover positions. Now, obviously, to get to a position perhaps over here is going to be difficult. So we could try with the AEC, just putting it in this position, allowing the sniper to take cover from it, and then run into this position on enemy territory. Now, again, few cases really I think that you'd really want to use that, but if you are trying to get stealth units, different stealth units, not snipers, perhaps it could be commandos, it could be stormtroopers if you're playing as the austere, something powerful that can stealth, then this is a really great trick for moving it across large areas where there is no cover or negative cover. And then that kind of allows you to assist that squad getting into a good position. They're then ready to flank and kind of attack the enemy from behind when they push you. Hi everyone, thanks for checking out my second COH2 tips and tricks video. The tips and tricks in this video are between beginner to advanced skill level, so I hope you find something here that does help you. If you do consider yourself an advanced Company of Heroes 2 player, check the link in the description below for a link to the Masterclass series where I do a 1v1 gameplay analysis with top players in Company of Heroes 2. You will definitely learn something from the top players in this game to improve your gameplay. And if you enjoy the content here and want to see more, please don't forget to like and subscribe and leave a comment in the channel. Thanks very much.